Wall Street wasn't always about high-frequency trading, billion-dollar bailouts, or the relentless pace of modern finance. Its story is much older and a lot more colorful than you might expect. Nope. It started much simpler, way back in the 17th century when the city we now call New York was just a small outpost on the edge of a vast continent. Picture this. New Amsterdam, a bustling Dutch trading post filled with opportunity where ships from across the Atlantic brought goods, people, and new ideas. Farmers selling their wares, merchants hawking their goods, and traders negotiating deals in the open air. It was the original hustle, a melting pot of ambition and commerce. To protect their precious trading routes and the growing settlement, the Dutch built a sturdy wooden wall along the northern edge of the colony. This wall, my friends, is the very same Wall Street we know and, well, maybe not love, but definitely recognize as the beating heart of global finance. Fast forward a couple of centuries and Wall Street transformed from a simple barrier into a symbol of economic power and ambition. It became the place for businesses to raise capital, where dreams of expansion and innovation could become reality with the right investment. Companies issued stocks and bonds, and investors lined up to buy a piece of the action, hoping to strike it rich or secure their future. Wall Street became synonymous with American capitalism, the engine room of the world's biggest economy, and a magnet for ambition from every corner of the globe. But somewhere along the way, something shifted. The stakes got higher, the deals got bigger, and the risks became enormous. The balance of power started to tip, and Wall Street's influence began to grow, reaching far beyond the city and into the halls of government and the lives of everyday people. We're talking big influence, the kind that makes politicians sweat, regulations vanish, and fortunes made or lost in the blink of an eye. Buckle up, folks, because things are about to get interesting. The story of Wall Street is just getting started, and its impact is felt in every corner of our world. Remember that shift in power we talked about? Well, it wasn't some act of God or a rogue meteor strike. It was far more earthly, far more calculated money. See, Wall Street figured out something crucial: money talks. And in the halls of power, it speaks volumes. They started lobbying, hard. Lobbying, for those unfamiliar with the term, is a fancy way of saying paying people to whisper in politicians' ears. But these weren't just any whispers. These were sweet nothings about deregulation, tax breaks, and basically anything that could make Wall Street even richer. And guess what? It worked. Politicians, ever hungry for campaign contributions, started listening. They loosened regulations, slashed taxes, and basically rolled out the red carpet for Wall Street. The floodgates were open and money came pouring in. The financial industry ballooned, becoming a behemoth dwarfing any other sector. But with great size comes, well, you know the rest. Let's talk about campaign finance, baby. It's the not-so-secret sauce that keeps American politics running, and trust me, it's a wild ride. Running for office in America is expensive, like really expensive. We're not just talking about a few yard signs and some pizza for volunteers. Think millions, sometimes billions, spent on everything from rallies to relentless advertising. We're talking Super Bowl ad-level expensive. Candidates need to flood the airwaves, dominate social media, and plaster their faces on every billboard in town just to stay competitive. And guess who has a lot of money? Ding, 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 it's Wall Street, of course. The titans of finance have pockets deeper than the Grand Canyon and a keen interest in who's making the rules. Politicians, regardless of party, need cash to fuel their campaigns. Without it, their message gets drowned out, and their chances of winning shrink fast. And Wall Street, with its deep pockets and even deeper desire for favorable policies, was more than happy to oblige. After all, a friendly politician can mean billions in profits down the line. They showered politicians with campaign contributions, both directly and through political action committees, or PACs. These PACs became a powerful tool for funneling even more money into the political system, often with little transparency. Now, nobody's saying that every politician is bought and paid for, but the reality is, big donors get big access, and that access can shape the laws that affect us all. But let's just say that when someone donates a boatload of cash to your campaign, it's hard not to at least hear them out when they come knocking with a policy proposal. Money talks, and in Washington, it practically shouts. This created a system where Wall Street's interests were often prioritized over the needs of ordinary Americans. The voices of everyday people can get drowned out by the roar of financial influence. The result? A political system increasingly beholden to the financial industry. Year after year, the numbers show more money flowing from Wall Street to Capitol Hill, tightening those golden handcuffs. And when the people you represent are also the ones bankrolling your next election, well, let's just say it creates a bit of a conflict of interest. The line between serving the public and serving your donors gets blurrier every election cycle. The 1980s. A decade of neon lights, synthesizer music, and a sense that anything was possible. But beneath the glitz and glamour, something seismic was happening in the world of finance. Shoulder pads, leg warmers, and the dismantling of financial regulations. The era wasn't just about bold fashion choices. It was about bold moves in the boardroom and on the trading floor. It was a time of bold pronouncements about trickle-down economics and the unshackling of the free market. President Reagan and his allies promised that less government interference would mean more prosperity for everyone. Wall Street, sensing an opportunity, went into overdrive. The energy on the trading floor was electric, as new possibilities seemed to open up overnight. They lobbied hard for deregulation, arguing that it would unleash economic growth and prosperity for all. The message was clear: let the market run free and everyone would benefit. And to be fair, some regulations probably needed a trim. The financial world was changing, and some old rules no longer made sense. But what followed was less of a trim and more of a full-blown shave, leaving the financial industry practically bare. The safeguards that had kept risk in check were swept away. Banks were allowed to merge into mega institutions, creating financial behemoths too big to fail. The lines between commercial and investment banking blurred and power consolidated at the top. Complex financial instruments like derivatives proliferated with minimal oversight. New products promised big returns, but few understood the risks lurking beneath the surface. It was a recipe for disaster, a financial bubble waiting to burst. The warning signs were there, but the party was just too good to stop. And burst it did, but we'll get to that later. The consequences would ripple through the economy for years to come. The point is, the 1980s marked a turning point. The financial world would never be the same again. Wall Street went from being a vital part of the American economy to a force unto itself, operating with alarming levels of power and influence, setting the stage for the financial dramas that would define the decades to come. So, the deregulation frenzy of the 1980s had a snowball effect. It created a system where Wall Street's power and influence just kept growing, often at the expense of, well, everyone else. How did that happen? Let's talk bailouts for a second. Remember those too big to fail banks we mentioned earlier? Well, they weren't just some cute nickname, they were actually a terrifying reality. When these financial behemoths made risky bets and lost, as they inevitably did, the government felt compelled to bail them out. Why? Because their collapse would have sent shockwaves throughout the entire global economy. So, taxpayers ended up footing the bill, while Wall Street executives kept raking in massive bonuses. It was, honestly, a classic case of privatizing profits and socializing losses. And it sent a pretty clear message. Wall Street was playing by a different set of rules, one where losses were covered and risks were, someone else's problem. Remember that bubble we talked about earlier? Yeah, it finally burst in 2008. The global financial system teetered on the brink of collapse, and the world held its breath. Millions lost their jobs, their homes, their savings. The culprit? You guessed it. Reckless lending practices and exotic financial instruments cooked up on Wall Street. It was a disaster of epic proportions, and ordinary Americans were left to pick up the pieces. But here's the kicker. While Main Street struggled to recover, Wall Street was back to business as usual. They received trillions in taxpayer-funded bailouts, got back on their feet, and continued to rake in record profits. The 2008 financial crisis wasn't just an economic disaster, it was a crisis of trust. It exposed the deep-seated flaws in a system that seemed rigged to benefit the few at the expense of the many. Ever heard of the revolving door? No, it's not some fancy new restaurant in Manhattan. It's the cozy relationship between Wall Street and Washington, where top executives and regulators seamlessly transition from one to the other. Imagine this. You spend years working at a big bank learning the ins and outs of financial regulations. Then you waltz into a cushy government job responsible for overseeing, you guessed it, the very same regulations you used to navigate as a banker. After a few years, you head back to Wall Street, armed with insider knowledge and connections. This constant back and forth creates a system where it's tough to tell where Wall Street ends and Washington begins. It's a breeding ground for conflicts of interest and regulatory capture, where the fox is essentially guarding the henhouse. And guess who ultimately pays the price? That's right, folks, it's the American people. The consequences of Wall Street's unchecked power are far-reaching. We're talking about a growing chasm between the haves and the have-nots, a sense that the system is rigged against ordinary Americans. While Wall Street executives enjoy record bonuses and champagne wishes, many Americans are struggling to make ends meet. Wages have stagnated, the cost of living continues to rise, and the American dream seems increasingly out of reach for many. This growing disparity breeds resentment, anger, and a deep sense of disillusionment with the political system. It's a recipe for social unrest and political instability. And unless we address this fundamental imbalance of power, we're sitting on a powder keg of frustration and anger. So, what can be done? Can we rein in Wall Street's power and create a system that works for everyone, not just the wealthy few? It's a daunting task, but not an impossible one. We need to get serious about campaign finance reform, reduce the influence of money in politics, and close the revolving door between Wall Street and Washington. We need stronger regulations, tougher enforcement, and a renewed focus on holding powerful institutions accountable. It won't be easy. Wall Street has a lot of money and even more lobbyists. But as we've learned from history, real change often comes from the bottom up, from ordinary people demanding a fairer system. The fight for a more just and equitable society starts with recognizing the problem, speaking truth to power, and demanding better. It's a David versus Goliath battle, but as we all know, even giants can fall.